So now, what is an obstacle? This is any obstruction designed or employed to disrupt, fix, turn, or block the movement of an opposing force. It is also something that imposes additional losses in personnel, time, and equipment on the opposing force. Obstacles can exist naturally, or they can be man-made, or can be a combination of both, and that is in accordance with Joint Publication 3-15. So for us, an obstacle in battlefield resume methodology is something that you, let's say, may see in a vacancy announcement as a requirement that you may not meet exactly. So one kind of obstacle, an easy obstacle, is if a vacancy announcement says that a bachelor's degree is required. Maybe you have so many credit hours, you don't have a bachelor's degree, but you're attending college or have a lot of credit hours that are progressing you along to get your bachelor's degree maybe in a year. So that's an obstacle that you can work through and work over. Other obstacles that you've identified through your analysis are maybe requirements like must have a current top secret clearance or something. And if you don't already have a current top secret clearance or you're not in a process, that's an obstacle that you probably can't work through, especially because it's in the requirements section or the qualifications section. And so you kind of have to look at those as obstacles and kind of annotate those through your analysis and see which ones you can work through and which ones you can't. Other obstacles would be maybe what I would call dead time. Let's say you worked as an aviation mechanic and you're applying to an aviation mechanic type of job, but you got out of the military and let's say worked at a grocery store for 2 years and then came back into the military, National Guard or Reserve, and became a mechanic as well again. So that 2 years that you worked outside of the military is an obstacle for you on your resume. Not so much the vacancy announcement like we just discussed, but it is an obstacle on your resume. What do you do with so-called dead time? So there's other options that you can do. You can work through that, and we'll talk about those later in the course. But that is an objective, or an obstacle that you can work through one way or another, either by defining the competencies or associating the competencies that you use during that time frame. Another option of this obstacle, working through it anyway, is to maybe reformat your resume to more of a functional resume instead of a chronological resume, or a combination of the both. So there's all kinds of strategies involved, and this is part of the courses of action based on the analysis. But these obstacles you must identify and then work through in order to elevate your resume so it is not distracting. One problem on your resume is if you have all kinds of obstacles on your resume that you haven't worked through, then when the enemy, the high value target, the hiring manager, reads your resume, obstacles tend to cause the hiring manager to stop reading. So if you can think of that as they progress through your resume, and they normally progress from the top of the resume down to the bottom, where you will look through. If there's some obstacle in that resume, a lot of times that hiring manager will just immediately stop and then look for another resume that's easier to read. Remember, the hiring manager, high value target, the enemy, only takes about 6 to 10 seconds to read through your resume to make sure that it's qualified for the interview, qualified for the vacancy. So when you look at your resume from the enemy's perspective, you need to only take 6 to 10 seconds to look through it. And obstacles tend to make that process longer. And so a hiring manager, if you think, has, let's say, between 20 and 100 resumes to look through, now HR would have maybe 500 to 1,000 resumes to look through. So that screening is a little more critical as well. And we can get to that in later in the course. Currently, though, when we're looking at the hiring manager, they're going to look at 20 to 50 resumes to see who's qualified for the interview. they're only going to look at them for 6 to 10 seconds. So any obstacle that hasn't been worked through will force them to stop reading and then move on to another resume that's easier and highlights the qualifications better.